So this is a video that I've wanted to make for several weeks now, but it's a topic that is very, very highly debated. Just because you have people that feel strongly one way or the other about Leonard Fournette, whether they want to keep him on a team or whether they want to get rid of him. So I really wanted to do like thorough research on the whole thing so I can bring out my arguments about Fournette and to defend my opinion, just to kind of look a little bit more legit. I don't know. So if you guys could, a lot of thought went into this video. So if you could please leave a thumbs up, that'd be awesome. But I'm gonna go ahead and get into this, man. Leonard Fournette, he was the 4th overall pick for the Jaguars in the 2017 draft. And, you know, when you picked him, he's a bell cow running back. You know, it's exciting picking running backs because they get the ball over 20 times a game. They're skill positions, so it's always fun. And Leonard Fournette's first year for the Jaguars, I don't think really many people were disappointed because, you know, the kind of numbers that he put up, he played in 13 games. He put up 1,040 yards rushing. He had 9 touchdowns. The one little thing about him that was a little bit off, though, was his yards per carry. He had 3.9 yards per carry, which a lot of people were kind of looking at and kind of questioning his really ability about. But, you know, that was probably only 10 to 20% of kind of people out there. Most people were pretty happy with his production, including myself. But then the 2018 season came about. And, you know, I was somebody that was really, really high on Leonard Fournette just because, first of all, he's got this rare combination of size, speed, and power. You know, I wanted him in the 2017 NFL draft. He was just super well known in college football. I mean, everybody knew about Leonard Fournette. Even the casual NFL fan knew about Leonard Fournette just because of just some of his ridiculous highlights over when he was at LSU. And there were all these things in the offseason about how he's trimming himself to really getting better, you know, playing weight. He was down, he cut a lot of weight to really be at where he wanted to be. I always remember that image in my head of him after the AFC Championship game where he looked like the saddest player on the field, just taking that knee inside of the tunnel. And I also saw that he was a pretty good teammate, you know. Like, I remember when Jason Myers was struggling, the first guy, the only really guy that came up to Jason Myers to kind of help him through whatever he was struggling through was Leonard Fournette. So, you know, I felt really good about Leonard Fournette. But then, obviously, the 2018 season came, and it all went downhill. It really started off with the very first game of the season where in the second quarter, he leaves the Giants game due to injury. And then the rest of the year, you know, he's struggling with injuries. He's getting suspended. I mean, in 2018, some of his stats, he had 439 total yards, 5 touchdowns, 3.3 yards per carry. He only appeared in 8 games. He was only in 8 games, and you know, 2 of those games he left in the first half due to injury. You know, against the Giants, he left in the first half. A few games later, he came back against the Jets and left in the first half. One game he got thrown out for throwing a punch. One game he even sat a couple series when we played against Washington. You know, you saw in a Thursday night game he's sitting there yelling at the Tyrone Wheatley about, you know, just how he's like kind of struggling and everything. So he really only appeared in 5 full games this season, and that's atrocious, especially when we're in a situation where we basically built a team around Leonard Fournette. We didn't sign these big fancy wide receivers. We would go in and sign nose grading left guards to big amounts of money. And just the roster honestly was constructed poorly just because we all knew about Leonard Fournette's health issues dating back to not only the 2017 season, but also in college when he was always just hampered by injury over there. And, you know, we built a roster where there was no power back to really back him up. And then several weeks into the injury, we do a panic move and go trade a 5th-round pick over for Carlos Hyde, who was just a terrible acquisition. Probably one of the worst trades in franchise history, a guy who we're probably going to wind up cutting. So that's basically us throwing away a 5th-round pick. And just Carlos Hyde's production was just so minimal. And just the 2018 season just left so much to be desired. And it's not only about just Leonard Fournette's playing on the field, but a lot of it was off the field. And, you know, you can speculate about, you know, Leonard Fournette as a character, like what he does, because I don't know what goes on in the locker room. I don't know how he is as a teammate interacting from one guy to another. I don't know what he's like in the meeting rooms. I don't know what he's like when it comes to him showing up for rehab appointments. But one guy, Jaguars reporter Mark Long, I'll go ahead and roll something that he said about Fournette right now.
He comes in here and he's not working, leaving the bye week early, late for meetings, on his cell phone, fined constantly, falling asleep in meetings last year. Ask Blake Bortles. Get Blake Bortles out here. Blake Bortles, they broke the huddle, and literally, they break the huddle, and Blake had to tell Leonard what he was doing every single play. Where do you line up? Here's where you're doing. I mean, that's great. Maybe you can let that go a little bit as a rookie, but not in year 2.
So those are all pretty telling statements. I mean, that's not me saying anything. That's a Jaguars reporter saying it. Now, you guys can choose to believe him or not, but that's kind of what he says. And you really just got to question things. And with Leonard Fournette, man, the 8 games that are missed, 6 of those are due to the hamstring injury. One game he was suspended by the NFL for throwing that one punch. The last game the Jaguars just decided to sit him, and obviously, Tom Coughlin came out with that tweet after the game about how just Leonard Fournette and T.J. Yeldon were totally disengaged from the game. And I don't mind T.J. Yeldon, whatever. He's not a part of the Jaguars' long-term plans. He was inactive the last few games of the season. Rest him. He'll get a big contract somewhere, whatever. But Leonard Fournette, man, I mean, he's the guy who started out the season with a C on his chest. The team voted Leonard Fournette as a captain, and he's sitting there totally disengaged from the game, could totally care less. And obviously the Jaguars, Tom Coughlin put out that statement that he's disappointed with the way T.J. Yeldon and Leonard Fournette conducted themselves. And they wound up, because of that suspension from the NFL, they wound up voiding all of his guaranteed money. And that's something, man, because Leonard Fournette, that obviously pissed him off. I mean, he goes on Instagram and basically unfollows the Jaguars, deletes 90% of his Instagram posts. If you look at his Instagram, I think he only has 10 photos up right now. It's a weird situation with Leonard Fournette right now. He's obviously pissed off at the Jaguars, and it's a situation where it's like, did the Jaguars, do they want to cut bait with him? If a team were to offer a 3rd, 4th round pick for him, would they accept something like that? Now, me, I waver back and forth with Fournette. With Fournette, if I'm going to keep Fournette, you got to do some things for him. First of all, I think what he needs in the room, he needs a veteran in the room. He needs a running back that really, really cares about the game. This year he had guys like T.J. Yeldon in there and like Corey Grant. He was obviously the loudest personality in the room. He didn't really have anybody to look up to. I heard MJD on 1010XL this week basically talking about how when he was a player, he just emulated Fred Taylor. He would follow him everywhere. He was just wanted to be a pro like Fred Taylor. I don't think that Leonard Fournette really has that on the team, in the locker room. On the offense, our 2 captains on the team were Blake Bortles and Leonard Fournette. We had no offensive leadership. We get rid of guys like Mercedes Lewis, who was, he made a pretty good impact on the field. But, one thing that goes that's unmeasurable is the kind of impact they have when it comes to the leadership aspect. I think he was a big-time leader. He was a captain. Another guy, we get rid of Allen Hurns. I think he was a very, very underrated leader. We just didn't have any, lead-by-example kind of guys. We have, Brandon Linder. I don't know how much he really talks. All the wide receivers are kind of young. You have a guy like Dante Moncrief in on a rented deal. So there's no real, person, any big leader on the offensive locker room. What we need is somebody in the running back room that's a big personality. I mean, you look around, one guy that would have been, I think, a huge signing for the Jaguars would have been if we would have signed Adrian Peterson last season, because Geis got injured, the rookie out of LSU. He tore his ACL in, I believe, the preseason, and then they go ahead and pick up Adrian Peterson off the streets. If we could have got a guy like that in the locker room early on this year, I think Fournette would have been able to follow his work ethic. Obviously you look at AP. I mean, I'm not going to go too much in on him, but he comes back from ACL tears really quickly. He's always getting 1,000-yard seasons. I mean, he's always outperforming people's expectations, especially in his older seasons. And this year we have the opportunity to maybe go out there and get a veteran type of running back. I mean, you look at the free agency class. Frank Gore is going to be available. Latavius Murray is going to be available. Adrian Peterson is going to be available. So we got to get a guy like this in the locker room to try to kind of salvage Leonard Fournette if we were to keep him, if we want to try to get as much ROI on that first round pick as possible. But when I look at Leonard Fournette, man, you try to see what kind of really potential he has, just because really Leonard Fournette, his whole entire career on the Jaguars, he's always been hampered by injury. His rookie year, he was basically dealing with an ankle injury all year, and obviously the first half of the very first game of the season this year against the Giants, he tears his hamstring or tweaks his hamstring, whatever will happen, but it hurt him the whole entire year, and he's never had over 4 yards per carry in a year, so it's so hard to evaluate a guy like this. And especially on the Jaguars when, we've never had a passing attack. He's always playing against loaded boxes. But I look at Leonard Fournette, some things I like about him, obviously the power. He's got great speed and all that kind of stuff. He's a guy that can turn a 1 yard gain into like a 5 or 6 yard gain. But some things I don't like about him, like I said with the whole, he can turn a 1 yard gain into a 5-6 yard gain. He can also turn a 25-plus yard gain into like an 8 yard gain. The guy, when he's in the open field, he never makes anybody miss. He's never able to cut and make a guy miss. Now, is that due to the hamstring injury? Is that due to the ankle injury? I don't know, but what I've seen on the field, he's not able to make guys miss one-on-one. He may be able to kind of roll over somebody and pick up some extra yardage, but it's not college anymore. He's not able to go one-on-one with guys in the open field and just truck them and keep running over them. It doesn't happen. Another thing about him, his vision is kind of off. He's never really showed truly good vision, as like he never really, there's some times where he just doesn't pick the right hole. He runs the opposite way, and he doesn't get a good amount of yards. He doesn't get he doesn't capture the full amount of yardage he can gain from that play, and I just don't know what his ceiling is, because I look at guys, other top 5 running back picks like Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley looks so much better than Leonard Fournette has ever looked. Ezekiel Elliott looks better than he's ever looked. Like Todd Gurley. I know Todd Gurley had a down year, but I don't know. It's so tough to evaluate Leonard Fournette, but, first thing about Leonard Fournette, he has to get right in the head, man. He has to. Does he love football? We got to figure out if he actually loves football. And, he's got to somehow fix his whole injury thing, because I don't know. I don't know how to fix that. I don't know if he needs to work out harder or like what it is, but, there's reports out there that he's being late to rehab, meanings that he just doesn't take everything seriously, and that's a huge concern to me. It's a huge concern to me. So, I wouldn't, honestly, I don't know. I don't know what I would do. If somebody were to offer me a high 3rd round pick, I might be wanting to take it, just because, you can find running backs really all over the place in the draft. It'd be a true message to send to the team, but it's tough to give up on your 4th overall pick like that. But we're in a situation where, Leonard Fournette's almost proven to almost be a locker or a cancer in a locker room, and that's not what the Jaguars need. We're a young team. We need leadership, and I just don't know how much Leonard Fournette has to offer to the team, and I just don't know how good he really is. So those are my thoughts on the situation. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments down below. If you want to keep Leonard Fournette, if you want to get rid of Leonard Fournette. I've kind of aired my grievances on how I feel about Leonard Fournette, so I kind of want to hear about you guys. And I hope you guys can respect my opinion on the whole situation. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. Now, with all that said, man, this is UCF Jaguar with JimJag.com. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. Like the video, subscribe it if you haven't already, and I'll catch you guys next time.